all religions have a split in them. There are those that understand the gospel prior to the perversion of the early 20th century, and those who have fully embraced the perversion of the gospel. And that perversion is social justice in the way it is described by Jeremiah Wright as the government should do all of these things. You can't find the word social justice in the gospel. You can't find it in the Bible. What you can find is you personally give up everything and serve. You help. Nowhere does it say create a giant government and have it reign on earth and they will decide. That takes away your freedom of choice. Here is the latest from the president. Now, this came out from a Catholic source. I'm trying to remember. Do you remember what it is?
I think it was Catholic Online.
Catholic Online. I don't know anything about it, but they have this one absolutely right. Absolutely right. And Robbie George, who is a professor at Princeton University, he is one of the most ethical, one of the most decent, one of the most God-fearing men, and he is a Catholic. He's not really a theologian. What would you call him? He's one of the leading authorities in the Catholic Church for advice, and he is amazing, and he gets it. This is what the president said in Cairo, and he is now choosing to say this all the time. There is freedom of religion as exposed or as talked about in our founding documents. Freedom of religion. But listen to what the president says.
These freedoms of expression and worship, of access to information and political participation.
Okay, stop. A freedom of worship, not of religion. You may think that this is a very small point until you hear, give me 7 minutes. In 7 minutes, you will understand why he chose those words and why he's continuing to choose those words. Freedom of worship. And if the pressure becomes too great on this guy, he will change his language. But we have never had a president that kept talking about freedom of worship, freedom of worship, freedom of worship. It's always freedom of religion. Why? I'll explain in a second. And boy, do a few pieces fall into place. Freedom of worship. Do not confuse the freedom of religion with the freedom of worship. Barack Obama is said in his Cairo speech, freedom of worship. And he has been taking to the use of that phrase over freedom of religion. There is a huge difference. Freedom of religion is what we have here. But let me show you Article 124 from the USSR Constitution, Soviet. In order to, and we remember how free the Soviet Union was, right? We know how, Christians could do anything you wanted. Jews, they loved you. Article 124. In order to ensure citizens' freedom of conscience, the church in the USSR is separated from the state. Separation of church and state. And the school from the church. So, the church and the state are separate. And the school from the church. Article 124. Now, we don't have that in any of our documents, but it's weird how the progressives insist that there is a separation of church and state exactly the way there was in the Soviet Union, and a separation of God in all of our schools, just like there was in the Soviet Union. Freedom of religious worship and freedom of anti-religious propaganda is recognized for all citizens. So, in other words, freedom of worship. You can worship any way you want. You want to worship? Go worship. Now, wait. You're going to talk to other people about that? No, that's religious propaganda. You can worship anything you want. Wait. What does your Bible say? Wait a minute. What your preacher says what? You can worship any way you want. But that doesn't give you a right to talk about it. That doesn't give you a right to preach about it. That doesn't give you a right to propaganda. And that's what it is. The preacher is just up doing propaganda. What do they accuse me of? Propaganda. So you can worship all you want. But I'm sorry, you can't print that and hand that out. But if you're anti-religious, you'll notice that it's freedom of worship and freedom of anti-religious propaganda. That means you can speak out against it, but you really don't have a right to speak out for it. There is a full, head-on, frontal attack on religion, on the gospel. You must not be afraid. You must stand your ground. You must also be as Christ-like as possible. They are going to paint, remember, you've got Rosie O'Donnell and everybody else. These Christians are just as dangerous as Al-Qaeda. Remember, they believe that. They don't believe that President Ahmadinejad is dangerous, but they do believe, they do believe that Christians are dangerous. They believe it. We are dealing with a different mentality. We are dealing with people that have grown up believing the Weather Underground was right. We are being ruled now, and those are the right words. We are being ruled by a group of people who have contempt for our Constitution, for religion, unless it is the religion of social justice, collective salvation, and the right to worship. They will say that we're hate mongers and bigots. They always do. They're hate mongers. They're bigots. Freedom of speech, freedom of speech. Yet they shout those things while trying to get you to shut up. They'll shout freedom of speech and freedom of censorship, trying to get you to shut up. Pay no attention to this. Do not become an enemy of theirs. You become a warrior for the Lord. And I can't believe I live in a time in this country where I have to say, and I don't mean a gun or a weapon, a spiritual warrior for the Lord. You are to stand with him in the understanding that you have. There must be a connection between people of faith. We've got to stop. We've got to stop saying, I've got to baptize you and you got to baptize me, and we've got to stop. We've got to stop you dead in your tracks. No. The truth shall set you free, and the Lord will sort it all out, and the Lord will work miracles in our day. We must stand together. We are going to disagree with each other on theology. We're going to have debates. We're going to go back and forth, and we're going to have that. But we must love each other and stand together and recognize our differences. And don't protect turf. We each preserve what we believe. I'm not saying that we melt into each other. What I'm saying is, e pluribus unum. From many, one. Stand together. Our differences only make us stronger. And there are going to be things that we just disagree with each other so hard on it, our heads are going to spin. But we must stand together. United we stand, divided we fall.